It was a regular Tuesday afternoon, one of those sticky, exhausting days where life feels like a checklist you never finish. I was standing in the parking lot of the local grocery store, balancing 12 overstuffed bags, sweat gathering behind my neck, trying not to drop a carton of eggs or rip the bottom out of the rice sack. Then my phone rang. At first, I hesitated. That split second when your gut whispers, "Don't answer," but your heart, out of habit or weakness, reaches anyway. The screen flashed an unfamiliar number, but the moment I picked up the voice wrapped around me like a too sweet perfume I didn't ask for. "Hi, sweetheart, it's Mom." Cheerful, light, practiced. The tone she saves for church luncheons, Christmas cards, and sugar-coated betrayals. The tone I grew up learning meant, brace yourself. I balanced the phone on my shoulder and unlocked the trunk. "Hi, Mom." "We were just talking," she said like it was nothing, "and we thought maybe it'd be nice to throw a little graduation party." I froze. Graduation party? My heart did that thing it does, jumped first, questioned later. She went on, "Just something small, of course, just family, for our granddaughter." There it was, that phrase, our granddaughter. I should have asked. I should have clarified. I should have remembered who I was dealing with. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "Oh, that's really kind of you." She laughed lightly. "We'd love to host. You don't have to worry about a thing. Just bring Mia and the family. We'll take care of everything." And against my better judgment, against the history written in hundreds of quiet wounds, I believed her. For one fragile moment, I let the words land, and something I hadn't felt in a long time crept into my chest. Hope. Because surely, this time, she meant Mia, my daughter. The girl who had clawed her way through high school with grace and grit, who tutored others even when she needed help herself, who didn't just graduate, she stood at the top of her class, valedictorian, the first in our family. I imagined the possibility. Maybe my parents were finally ready to see her, to see what I saw, to show up, not out of obligation, but out of pride. Maybe, just maybe, they would finally act like grandparents. And God help me, maybe they would finally act like parents to me too. That evening, after the groceries were put away and the kitchen was quiet again, I sat at the edge of Mia's bed with a half-folded blanket in my lap. She was working on a scholarship essay, fingers hovering over the keyboard like she was afraid the words might betray her. I took a breath. "Grandma and Grandpa want to throw you a graduation party." She stopped typing. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just stopped. She turned her head slightly, her eyes finding mine. "Really?" One word, soft, uncertain. But in that one word, I could feel it, the 1,000 hopes she'd buried, the silent wish she'd never said out loud. I nodded slowly. "They called today, said they wanted to host something small, just for you." Her lips parted, then closed again, like the beginning of a smile that didn't want to get ahead of itself. She didn't cheer, she didn't squeal. She didn't ask what kind of cake or who would be invited. She just sat there, quiet, breathing in the possibility. And then it happened. A flicker, just behind her eyes, a shimmer of belief. The kind of smile that isn't on the face, but in the soul. I'd seen that look before, once when she was 6, and her dad told her he was taking her to the museum for the first time. And once again, when she got into her dream school and whispered, "I actually did it." This smile was smaller. But somehow, it broke me more. Because it wasn't loud joy, it was fragile hope. And fragile things, when broken, don't always heal the same. The day of the party was hot. Not just warm or sunny hot, the kind of thick, sticky summer heat that clings to the back of your neck and makes you question every choice involving makeup or heels. Mia kept switching earrings, trying to decide between the gold hoops and the subtle pearls. Marcus couldn't find his good shoes. And I was already sweating before we even stepped out the door. We rehearsed the plan in the car like a mantra. It's a kind gesture. Just smile. Be grateful. Don't expect too much. But the silence grew heavier the closer we got to my parents' house. And then we turned onto their street. I almost didn't recognize the place. Their modest lawn was now covered with a massive white canopy tent, glistening gold tablecloths, dozens of folding chairs, a DJ booth in the corner, and customized signs stuck in the grass. It didn't look like a graduation party. It looked like a small wedding. Marcus leaned forward. "Wow." Mia whispered, "This is a lot." We parked, stepped out, and instantly we were surrounded. Relatives we hadn't seen in years, air kisses from people who barely remembered my name, lemonade and plastic cups shoved into our hands before we could even say hello. And then I saw her, Kay, front and center. Curled hair, a glittery dress, a sash that read, "Class of 2025. She looked like a pageant queen. I still didn't get it. Not yet. I thought maybe they gave her a little moment too. Maybe it was a joint celebration. Maybe the cake had both names. I turned toward the dessert table, and then I saw it. 3-tiered, pastel pink frosting, gold piping, a tiny edible graduation cap sitting neatly on top. And across the middle in perfect cursive it said, "Congratulations to our only granddaughter." I stopped walking. Mia behind me froze. And the world didn't explode. It just went silent. Because in that one sentence frosted in buttercream, everything became clear. This wasn't for Mia. It never had been. We stood there, frozen. The banner flapped gently in the breeze. The cake gleamed under the summer sun. Kay posed for photos with a tiara on her head, like it was her coronation day. And Mia, she didn't cry. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She just stood still, as if her body was there, but the rest of her had floated somewhere far away. I wanted to reach for her, to say something, anything. But what do you say when the people you love just declared in frosting and balloons that you don't exist? We walked further into the party like ghosts, not guests, not family, just background. No one noticed our silence. No one stopped their laughter. They passed us like we were furniture. Ghosts don't make scenes. They haunt quietly. And that's exactly what we did. One woman handed me a cup of lemonade and smiled like this was the happiest day in the world. A cousin hugged Mia and whispered, "You must be so proud of your cousin." Another guest pointed at the photo board and said, "I can't believe how much she's grown." They meant Kay, of course, not my daughter, not the one who'd worked her soul to the bone. Mia just nodded politely. Her face didn't crack, her hands didn't shake. But I could see it, in her eyes, that flicker again. But this time, it wasn't hope. It was something else, something colder, quieter. Like the moment you realize you've been erased, and no one even noticed. It happened about 20 minutes in. The crowd had settled, plastic plates balanced on laps, napkins tucked under chins, laughter floating over lukewarm shrimp and undercooked sliders. And then Heather stood up, champagne glass in hand, eyes already glistening with tears that had nothing to do with sincerity and everything to do with performance. She tapped her glass. "If I could have everyone's attention." The chatter quieted. Somebody even clapped as if we were about to witness history. "Today," she said, "we gather to honor a young woman who has worked so hard." I felt Mia shift beside me. Just a breath. Not hope. She wasn't that naive. More like bracing for impact. This young lady has shown grace, intelligence, determination, and heart. Heather's voice cracked at just the right moment. Graduating 8th grade is no small feat. And there it was. A pause, as if we should all rise and salute. She's handled this chapter with such poise and maturity. I couldn't be prouder to call her my daughter. Applause. Real, loud, earnest. Mia didn't move. She didn't blink. She just stared forward, expression blank, like someone watching a stranger live out the scene that should have belonged to them. I looked around. Not one person mentioned Mia, not one nod, not one whisper, not even an awkward glance in our direction. She was invisible. And this wasn't a toast. It was a public rewriting of reality, a performance polished to shine just enough to blind everyone in the room, except the girl who should have been celebrated, the girl they'd rather erase. After the toast, the party swirled back into music and small talk as if nothing had happened, but everything had. Mia stood still, her plate untouched. Marcus gave me a look, the kind that asks silently, "Do we leave now?" or pretend a little longer. I didn't answer, because I was already walking, across the patio, past the cousins and uncles and plastic chairs, straight toward the cooler where my mother stood, scooping ice into red cups, humming to herself like this was any other summer day. "The cake," I said, "says our only granddaughter." She didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't even look up. "Oh," she said lightly, "must have been a bakery mix-up." A mix-up, as if Mia were an extra comma on a receipt. They probably didn't know you have 2 granddaughters. She reached for a stack of napkins like the conversation was over, but I stayed. I didn't move. And that's when she added casually, like she was talking about the weather, "Besides, Mia's older now. She's not really a kid anymore." And there it was, the second cut, soft, quiet, delivered with a shrimp tray in one hand and condescension in the other. She wasn't denying what happened, she was just minimizing it, making it small enough to fold, stack, and tuck away between plastic forks. Mia wasn't invisible because they forgot her. She was invisible because they decided she didn't matter anymore. And in that moment, watching my mother drop another cube of ice into a cup, I knew something I had never wanted to admit before. She didn't just forget to love my daughter. She never tried. I didn't scream, I didn't cry in the shower or throw plates at the wall. I didn't storm out of the party, yelling, demanding justice, pointing fingers, making a scene. I did none of that. Instead, I went home. I took off my dress, I made tea, and for 3 days, I said almost nothing. Not to Mia, not to Marcus, not even to myself. But inside me, something was changing. Something was shifting, clicking into place like a lock turning after years of jamming. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to make them hurt. What I wanted was to make it stop. The erasing, the rewriting, the pretending that Mia didn't matter, that I didn't matter. So I sat down at my laptop, and I opened a blank document, and I wrote a letter. Not a speech, not a confrontation, not even a goodbye. Just a single surgical sentence. I intend to sell my 1/3 share of the property located at address. That was it. One line. No emotion, no guilt. Just a blade forged in silence. Marcus read it once and said, "It's perfect." He didn't ask if I was sure. He didn't offer advice. He just printed 2 copies. We put one in a plain white envelope, no return address, no signature card, no glitter, no drama, just truth, in its coldest, purest form. And on the 3rd day, while the sun rose exactly the way it always did, I walked up to my parents' porch and delivered it, by hand. It didn't take long. 3 hours after I dropped off the letter, my phone rang. Heather. I let it go to voicemail. Then again. Then again. The 4th time, I picked up. "What did you do?" she shrieked. No hello, no pause, just panic, raw and ragged. "You gave Mom a heart attack!" I stayed quiet. She opened it right in front of Kay. Her voice cracked like glass. She nearly dropped her tea. "Should I apologize to the tea?" I asked flatly. Heather didn't laugh. She sobbed, loud, unfiltered sobs, as if the letter had set the entire house on fire. "You're destroying her," she whispered. I waited, then replied, calm as ice, "No, she destroyed herself. I'm just making it official." She hung up, An hour later, my mother called. I didn't answer the first 5 times. The 6th, I did. Her voice was lower, controlled, calculated. "I'm going to pretend I misread that letter," she said, "and you're going to tell me it was a mistake." I didn't say a word. "Laura," she snapped, "you're not actually going to sell your share." "Yes, I am." Silence, the kind that hums in your ear like electricity. "That house is our home." "No, that house was Grandma's. You don't live there. You don't pay taxes on it alone either." Another pause. "And then, you're doing this because of a stupid party." "No, I'm doing this because my daughter deserves better than to be erased with frosting." And then she said it, the thing she always says when she runs out of excuses. "You're tearing this family apart." And for once, I didn't flinch. I smiled just a little. "No, Mom, that happened a long time ago. I'm just the first one brave enough to name it." Mia didn't cry. She didn't yell, slam her door, or ask why. She didn't ask if her grandparents called. She didn't ask what was in the letter. She didn't ask anything. She just stopped. Stopped texting them back. Stopped answering their check-in messages. Stopped saying thank you for birthday cards that arrived late and unsigned. Stopped reminding them which grade she was in. Stopped sending photos of her debate medals. Stopped pretending. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, like a light being turned off in an empty room. And no one really noticed, which made it hurt more. They still sent messages, still tagged her in photos, still added her to group chats she never opened. But Mia, she was gone. Not physically, not in anger, but in spirit. Gone from the role she had played so well for so long. The sweet, helpful granddaughter. The one who laughed at Grandpa's jokes. The one who always asked Grandma if she needed help washing dishes. The one who remembered every birthday, every detail, every soft chance to earn her place. She gave that up, all of it, not out of spite, but out of something far more permanent, understanding. She understood now. She'd never really had a place in their version of the story, and so she stopped auditioning. It was a Thursday. Mia had just finished dance class. Same studio, same sidewalk, same time she always got out. She was tying her jacket around her waist when she saw them. Susan and Gerald, standing there like tourists lost in the wrong neighborhood. Too casual to be accidental, too rehearsed to be kind. She slowed, not stopped, just slowed. They waved, smiled. "Sweetheart, look at you, so grown up. We were just out for a walk and thought we'd say hello." Mia nodded politely, didn't hug, didn't run. She just stood, feet flat, arms crossed, waiting. Then came the real reason. "We know your mom's upset," Susan said, stepping forward. "But this house thing, it's a lot. She's making everything harder than it has to be." "We don't want to fight," Gerald added. "But we might lose the house, Mia." And then Susan's voice dropped, soft, personal, blaming. "You understand, right? You're letting her do this. You're letting your mom make us homeless." That's what she said, to an 18-year-old, on a public sidewalk, outside a dance studio. And Mia, she didn't cry, didn't flinch, didn't raise her voice. She just said, "No." That's it. No defense, no justification, no pleading. Just no. Firm, final, finished. Then she turned and walked away. Left them standing there with their guilt, their performance, their imaginary version of events. And in that moment, Susan and Gerald finally felt what Mia had known for years, what it feels like to be on the outside. No, that's all Mia said. She didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't explain herself. She didn't plead for understanding. Didn't try to make it softer. Didn't even look back. She just said no and walked away. Not fast, not dramatic, just steady, like a door closing that no one realized had ever been open. When she got home, she didn't slam her bag down, didn't tell us what happened. She just changed into her pajamas, made a cup of tea, and sat at the table as if it were just another evening. But I knew something had shifted. Not broken shifted. Something permanent. I didn't ask her for details. I didn't need to. Because whatever happened out there, she had made a decision. And what scared me most wasn't what they said. It was how little it shocked her. Because Mia wasn't shattered. She wasn't even surprised. She was used to it. Used to being the afterthought. Used to being guilted, blamed, overlooked. And now, she was done. That night, as I lay in bed beside Marcus, I stared at the ceiling and whispered, they would hurt her to get to me. And in the silence that followed, I realized something even darker. They already did. The envelope looked official. Cream-colored, university crest embossed in navy blue at the top. Mia thought it was her housing packet. She opened it at the kitchen counter while I was rinsing a bowl. I didn't even look up until I heard the silence. Not the kind of silence that follows good news, the kind that holds its breath. I turned. She was staring at the letter, not reading anymore, just staring, like the words had turned to ice and frozen her in place. "Mia?" I asked. She handed it to me without a word. I wiped my hands and took it. One line stood out. Your enrollment is currently under review due to concerns raised in an anonymous report alleging material omissions and undisclosed legal matters. I read it twice. Then again. And with each word, my chest tightened. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a random audit. This was sabotage. Clean, sterile, delivered in formal university language, but underneath it bled. Marcus walked in, took one look at our faces, and read it over my shoulder. When he finished, he said nothing. Because what do you say when the future you spent 18 years building for your child is dangling by a thread sewn by someone who was supposed to love her? I didn't call first. I didn't text. I didn't warn them. I just grabbed my keys, slipped on the first shoes I saw, and drove straight across town. 20 minutes, no music, no plan, just one thought pulsing like a war drum. If they tried to take this from her, I need to look them in the eye when they say it. When I pulled up, the porch light was already on, almost like they were expecting me. My father, Gerald, opened the door before I even knocked. My mother, Susan, appeared behind him, holding her mug like it was a shield. No surprise, no shame, just smug silence. I stepped in. Did you report Mia to the university? Neither answered. Not right away. And then my mother said flat and cold, You think you can do what you did and not face consequences? I took a step closer. You tried to destroy her future. She didn't flinch, didn't deny it, didn't pretend to misunderstand. She just said it. Clean, clear, cruel. She doesn't belong there. 4 words. But they shattered something inside me. She got in on her own. Because you coached her. Because she worked. Because you lied. My heart thudded so loud I could barely hear myself breathe. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scream. I looked at them both, not as a daughter, but as a mother. You're not just bad grandparents, I said, calm as glass. You're dangerous people. And then I turned around and walked out. No storming, no tears, just finality. Because some truths don't need to be argued. They just need to be named. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at the kitchen table, the light above me buzzing faintly. Mia had gone to bed. Marcus didn't say a word. He just placed a cup of chamomile tea beside me and kissed the top of my head. At 1:12 a.m., I opened the family group chat. Same one we used to send birthday wishes. Same one where Susan once posted, proud to be surrounded by strong women in this family. I uploaded 3 files. A photo of that cake, congratulations to our only granddaughter. A PDF scan of Mia's University of San acceptance letter. An audio file titled Susan Statement.mp3. In it, her voice is crisp, unmistakable. She doesn't belong there. I didn't add a caption, no emojis. No explanations, just 3 truths, laid bare. At 1:17 a.m., Heather left the chat. At 1:23 a.m., my older brother Mark reacted to the audio with a red exclamation mark. 2 minutes later, he sent one sentence. "You're not alone, Laura." By morning, the group chat had gone silent, and it stayed that way. No apologies, no denials, just the sound of a family finally seeing itself and not liking what it saw. Mark never picked sides, not at Thanksgiving, not during childhood fights. Not even when our parents pretended Mia didn't exist. He was always the neutral one, the calm, the polite handshake and the awkward jokes. So when he texted me at 10:04 the next morning, I expected maybe comfort. But instead he wrote, "I'm selling my third of the house too." I froze. 10 seconds. 20. Then, for Mia, they went too far. That was it. No rant, no fanfare. But coming from Mark, those words were louder than any scream. 2 hours later, he emailed the family lawyer. By evening, his name was removed from the deed. I never expected him to choose a side, but he did. Not mine, Mia's. And somehow, that made all the difference. They moved in during the rain, boxes in the back of an old beige pickup. No neighbors waved, no family helped. The new house, one story, far from the city, built in the 1960s, and smelled like it hadn't breathed since. The lawn was overgrown, the mailbox dented. The inside had yellow wallpaper peeling like sunburnt skin, and in the far corner of the ceiling, mold. Not just stains, actual living mold, green and black, curling downward like a silent whisper of rot. Mom called me once. She didn't mention Mia, didn't ask about Marcus, just said flatly, "It's quiet here, too quiet." Then silence. No crying, no apology, just emptiness. They bought that house in cash, no mortgage, no loan, but in return, they lost something bigger, legacy. Laughter. Love. It turns out, when you build a life on favoritism and lies, you end up in a place no one wants to visit. They were sitting in the kitchen. It was past midnight. The dishes from dinner still in the sink. The only light came from the fridge, left slightly open. Marcus didn't look angry, just curious. His voice was soft. "Do you feel guilty?" Laura didn't answer right away. She stirred her tea, watched the steam rise, listened to the hum of the old refrigerator like the quiet breath of their home, finally at peace. Then she said without blinking, "No, I feel like I'm supposed to feel guilty, like maybe I should, but I don't." Marcus nodded slowly. No judgment. Only a pause, as if that truth had been circling between them for weeks, waiting for a landing. And then quietly, he reached across the table and held her hand. It was late fall, leaves like fire drifting down the street. The world smelled like cinnamon and cold wind. Mia sat beside her mother on the porch steps, knees pulled to her chest. Neither of them said much, until Mia whispered, "If they ever apologize, would you forgive them?" Laura looked at her daughter. Her voice was calm, but final. "No, not for this. Not for what they did to you." She didn't cry, didn't raise her voice, but something in the air shifted, as if even the trees had stopped moving for a moment to let that truth land. Mia didn't push further. She didn't need to. Sometimes love sounds like a no, and sometimes the kindest thing a mother can do is to mean it. The dorm room was small, one window, a creaky bed, a desk with initials carved into the corner. Mia stood in the center with a single suitcase. No banner, no grandparents, no fake speeches. Just her mom and Marcus, and the sound of a new chapter beginning, soft but real. The money from the house sale covered everything: tuition, books, housing. No loans, no begging, no emotional blackmail. As she unpacked, she taped one thing on the wall above her bed. "I get to define myself, not them." Mia didn't feel triumphant. She felt grounded. Like every hour of studying, every night she cried alone, every time she was ignored, built this. this place, this moment, this life. It wasn't gifted to her. It wasn't inherited. She earned it on her own terms. Sometimes at night, Laura asked herself, did I go too far? The house was gone. The family fractured. And her parents, they still hadn't said a word. Not a call, not a letter, not even a half-hearted apology. But then she'd hear Mia laughing in her room, or humming while folding laundry, or dancing barefoot in the kitchen without looking over her shoulder. And Laura would know, she didn't destroy a family. She exposed what was already broken. She didn't choose revenge. She chose safety. She didn't reject her parents. She protected her child. And when people asked, would you do it again? Laura didn't hesitate. Yes, because when forced to choose between blood and justice, I'll always choose my daughter. Not everyone born into your life deserves to stay in it. Some wounds don't come from harsh words or slaps. They come from being ignored, denied, and erased piece by piece. If you're a parent, remember protecting your child isn't always easy or gentle. Sometimes you have to stand up, sometimes even against those who raised you. Sometimes you have to walk away from relationships you once thought were forever. Because family ties should never be an excuse to stay silent in the face of injustice. And real love, sometimes it means setting firm boundaries. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever fought to protect a child from toxicity no one else would see, or if you're searching for a place to heal, to hear stories that feel like your own, hit that subscribe button. Because here, every wound has a voice, and no matter what you've been through, you deserve to be heard.